At 16, she believed she was born into silk dresses, candlelit halls, and a name that opened every door on the plantation. By sunset that same day, she would learn the truth, that her cradle was not upstairs, but in the slave quarters, that her bloodline was never meant to be acknowledged, and that the people who raised her as a lady had been hiding something far darker than a lie. Because on this plantation, identity was not inherited. It was chosen, and once the truth surfaced, someone decided she could never be allowed to leave alive. The girl's name was Evelyn Harper. At least that was the name stitched into her dresses, engraved on silver spoons, whispered with pride by the women who taught her to walk with straight posture and lowered eyes. Evelyn Harper, only child of the estate, a plantation lady in training, raised in the main house, far from the dirt and sweat of the fields. She had never been inside the slave quarters. Not once. From the wide gallery porch of the Harper plantation, she could see the long row of cabins beyond the cypress trees. But they might as well have been part of another world. No one ever spoke of them unless it was necessary. And when they did, their voices dropped, like you might speak of sickness or death. Evelyn was taught manners, French phrases, piano scales, and how to pour tea without spilling a drop. She was taught what to wear, how to smile, who to ignore, but she was never taught where she came from. Her childhood was wrapped in rituals that now seemed rehearsed. The way her mother, Margaret Harper, never allowed anyone to brush Evelyn's hair except herself. The way mirrors were removed from Evelyn's bedroom at night. The way old photographs mysteriously vanished whenever Evelyn asked about them. There were rules Evelyn never questioned until she began to notice the cracks. It started with the servants. They stared too long, not with admiration, not with resentment, but with something closer to recognition. Older women in the house would freeze when Evelyn entered a room, their eyes drifting to her face, her hands, her neck, as if confirming something they had been warned never to say aloud. Once, when Evelyn was 14, a laundrywoman dropped a basket and whispered, "Lord, forgive us," before being dragged away and dismissed the same afternoon. No explanation was ever given. Evelyn learned quickly. Curiosity was dangerous. Still, the plantation itself seemed to whisper when no one else would. The floorboards in the east wing groaned at night, even when no one walked there. The locked room at the end of the hall smelled faintly of iron and old cloth. And sometimes, only sometimes, Evelyn heard singing. Low. Broken. Coming from beyond the trees. She was told it was the wind, but the wind did not know her name. On the morning of her 16th birthday, Evelyn woke to silence. No servants bustling, no piano tuning, no breakfast tray, just stillness. When she stepped into the hallway, she saw every door closed, including her mother's. That had never happened before. Downstairs, the house felt wrong. Empty, as if everyone had stepped out at once. Then she saw the mirror. It had been placed back in the parlor, a full-length mirror, draped in white cloth, standing against the wall like a body waiting to be uncovered. Evelyn approached it slowly. Her reflection stared back. Pale skin, dark eyes, hair darker than anyone else in the house. She had always been told she took after her father, but no one ever showed her his face. When she lifted the cloth fully, something slid from behind the frame and landed on the floor. A folded paper. Old. Yellowed. Her name was written on it, in someone else's handwriting. Hands trembling, Evelyn opened it. Inside was not a letter. It was a birth record. Not from the county office. Not official. Handwritten. Signed by a midwife. And beneath her name, beneath the name Evelyn Harper, were two words that made her knees buckle. Born in the quarters. The room spun. Her chest tightened, as if the house itself had begun to press inward. Footsteps echoed behind her. Margaret Harper stood in the doorway. Not panicked. Not angry. Resigned. "You weren't supposed to find that yet," she said softly. Evelyn turned, clutching the paper. "What does this mean?" Margaret closed the door behind her. "It means," she said, "that you need to sit down." Evelyn didn't. She couldn't. Was I? Her voice cracked. Was I born there? Margaret's eyes filled, not with tears but calculation. Yes. The word fell like a gunshot. Evelyn shook her head. "That's not possible." "I was raised here." You were placed here," Margaret corrected. "For your protection." "Protection from what?" Margaret hesitated. Then she said the sentence that would fracture everything Evelyn believed about herself. "From the truth about your father." The silence afterward was unbearable. Evelyn's thoughts raced, too fast to grasp. "If I was born in the quarters," she whispered, "then my mother was." Margaret's voice dropped. Yes, a word followed. A word Evelyn had never been allowed to say aloud. And suddenly the stares made sense. The whispers. The mirrors. Evelyn staggered back. "Then why am I here?" she asked. "Why raise me like this?" Margaret stepped closer. "Because he demanded it." "Who?" Margaret reached out. but stopped herself before touching Evelyn's shoulder. Because the master of this plantation could not bear to look at you unless you looked like you belonged. Evelyn's stomach turned. The house creaked. Outside, the distant singing stopped, and in its place came something else. A door opening from the direction of the slave quarters. Evelyn felt it then, not fear, but the realization that her life had been carefully designed, and that the people who created it were not finished with her yet. Evelyn did not sleep that night. Every sound in the plantation house seemed louder now, floorboards snapping like knuckles, the distant creak of shutters, the slow ticking of a clock that suddenly felt like a countdown. The walls that once felt protective now felt complicit, as if they had watched her entire life and never spoken. She sat on the edge of her bed until dawn, clutching the birth paper until the ink bled faintly onto her fingers. Born in the quarters. The words did not change, no matter how many times she read them. When the sun finally rose, it revealed something she had never noticed before. Her room had no lock on the inside. Someone could enter whenever they wished. Downstairs, the house resumed its routine as if nothing had happened. Breakfast was laid. Servants moved with their heads down. Margaret Harper avoided Evelyn's eyes, speaking only in careful fragments. "You won't go out today," she said, pouring tea she did not drink. "You won't ask questions. You won't leave the grounds." Evelyn nodded, and decided to do the opposite. By afternoon, the heat lay heavy over the land. Cicadas screamed from the trees, loud enough to cover footsteps. Evelyn slipped out through the side porch, her skirts gathered tight, her heart pounding with each step toward the cypress line. She had been forbidden from going there her entire life. That alone told her everything. The path to the quarters was narrow, almost erased, used only by those who were never meant to be seen. As Evelyn crossed it, the plantation behind her seemed to recede unnaturally fast, the big house shrinking as though it wanted to pretend she had never existed. The cabins came into view, low, weathered, alive. People stopped when they saw her, not out of shock, out of recognition. An old woman stepped forward, her back bent with age, her eyes sharp as glass. "You came back," she said. Evelyn froze. I've never been here." The woman shook her head slowly. "Oh, yes, you have." Hands began to appear in doorways. Faces followed. No one blocked her path. No one bowed. They simply watched, waiting. "What is my name?" Evelyn asked, barely trusting her voice. The old woman studied her face as though reading a long, memorized scripture. "Your real one?" she asked. Evelyn nodded. The woman leaned closer and whispered it, a name Evelyn had never heard before. And yet, something inside her answered to it. Her knees buckled. "She knows," someone murmured. They finally told her. Took them long enough. Evelyn grabbed the old woman's arm. "Who was my mother?" The woman's mouth tightened. "She was one of us. Strong. Quiet. Never cried out. No matter what they did to her." Evelyn felt something tear open inside her chest. "And my father?" The woman did not answer. Instead, she turned and pointed, past the cabins, past the fields, back toward the plantation house. Evelyn followed her gaze. The big house stood white and distant. "Watching." "No," Evelyn whispered. "That's not possible." The old woman's voice hardened. "He claimed you the moment you were born, ordered you taken upstairs before your mother's body was cold." A sound escaped Evelyn's throat that did not feel human. "They dressed you in lace," the woman continued. "But they made us swear. No one would ever say your blood out loud. Because if they did, you would have to disappear." "Disappear how?" Evelyn asked. The old woman hesitated, then spoke quietly. "The same way your mother did." The air seemed to vanish. "She didn't die of fever," the woman said. "She screamed your name until they silenced her." Evelyn staggered back, bile rising in her throat. "You're lying," she said weakly. The woman stepped aside and revealed a small grave behind the last cabin. No marker, just a stone. Evelyn collapsed to her knees. The world tilted, memories rearranging themselves with brutal clarity. Why no one ever spoke of her father. Why Margaret Harper flinched whenever Evelyn laughed too loudly. Why mirrors were forbidden. She was not raised as a daughter. She was raised as a secret. A dangerous one. Footsteps thundered from behind. Men. White coats. Plantation overseers. Someone had followed her. The old woman's voice rose. "Run." Evelyn didn't hesitate. She ran, not toward the house but away from it, into the trees where the singing had once come from. Branches tore at her dress. Roots tripped her, but she did not stop until her lungs burned and her vision blurred. She reached a clearing she had never seen before, and there, half buried beneath leaves, stood a small structure. A shed. Its door hung open. Inside, the walls were covered in scratches, names, dates, and one word, carved again and again into the wood. "Daughter." Behind her, a twig snapped. Evelyn turned slowly. Margaret Harper stood at the edge of the clearing. Alone. You shouldn't have come here, she said. Evelyn's voice shook with rage. You knew. Yes, Margaret said. And if you value your life, you'll come back now. For what? Evelyn demanded. To keep pretending? Margaret stepped closer. To stay alive. Evelyn laughed, a broken, terrified sound. You raised me like a lady so you could control me. Margaret's face hardened. We raised you so you wouldn't end the way she did. A silence fell between them. Then, Margaret spoke the truth she had been avoiding. He's coming back, she said. And when he sees you now, knowing what you know, he won't allow you to exist. Evelyn felt cold settle into her bones. Unless, Margaret added quietly, you disappear first. The shed door creaked behind Evelyn. Something inside shifted. Not fear, resolve. Evelyn straightened. No, she said. I won't disappear. Margaret's eyes darkened. Then, she replied, neither will this plantation survive you. The wind rose through the trees, and for the first time, Evelyn understood. The house didn't own her. It feared her. Night fell too fast. Evelyn did not return to the big house. She stayed hidden in the tree line until the lamps inside the plantation mansion flickered on, one by one, like watchful eyes opening. From where she crouched, she could see figures moving behind lace curtains, restless, searching. They were looking for her. The realization settled deep and heavy. This was no longer about truth. It was about containment. When the house finally went quiet, Evelyn moved. She followed a path that did not exist on any map, a narrow trail pressed into the earth by generations of feet that were never meant to leave. The quarters were alive with whispered urgency now. Doors opened without sound. Hands reached out to guide her inside the nearest cabin. The old woman, Agnes, barred the door behind them. They'll come, Agnes said. They always do when one of their lies starts walking on its own. Evelyn's voice trembled. What happens to people like me? Agnes studied her for a long moment. Then she reached beneath a loose floorboard and pulled out a bundle wrapped in oilcloth. Inside were letters, not written by slaves, written by women, white women, plantation daughters. They didn't just steal you, Agnes said quietly. They've been doing this for decades. Evelyn's hands shook as she read. Names she recognized from portraits lining the mansion halls. Harper women who fell ill, who left for the north, who never married. Each letter ended the same way. They told me I was special. They told me I was chosen. They told me never to go near the quarters. Evelyn looked up. They were like me, Agnes nodded. Mixed blood scares men who build their lives on lies, especially when that blood carries proof. A scream cut through the night. Close, too close. Boots thundered outside. Lantern lights slashed through cracks in the cabin walls. Agnes grabbed Evelyn's face. Listen to me. They don't kill their mistakes. They erase them. The door burst open. Two overseers forced their way inside, eyes wild, sweat slick on their faces. Behind them stood Margaret Harper. Her expression was not fear. It was regret. Evelyn, Margaret said softly. Come home. Evelyn backed away. There is no home for me there. You're confused, Margaret insisted. You don't understand what you are. Evelyn's voice sharpened. Then explain it. Margaret hesitated. That hesitation told Evelyn everything. You're not my mother, Evelyn said. You're my keeper. Margaret closed her eyes. We were trying to protect the family. No, Evelyn replied. You were protecting a system. Agnes stepped forward. You want her quiet? She asked the overseers. You'll have to do it in front of everyone this time. Lanterns appeared at the edges of the clearing. Dozens of people from the quarters had gathered, silent but unmoving. Watching, the overseers faltered. Margaret's voice dropped. You don't know what you're unleashing. Evelyn stepped into the light. I do, she said. And so do they. For a moment, no one moved. Then a voice rose from the crowd. She's not the first. Another followed. They buried the others behind the orchard. A murmur rippled through the night like an awakening. Margaret's composure cracked. If this gets out, she whispered, the Harpers are finished. Evelyn met her gaze, steady and unafraid. Good. A shot rang out. The sound shattered the standoff. Screams followed. In the chaos, Agnes shoved Evelyn toward the trees. Go! Evelyn ran as gunfire echoed behind her, not aiming to kill, but to scatter, to silence, to restore order through fear. She didn't stop until dawn broke pale and gray. From the ridge above the plantation she looked back. Smoke curled from the quarters. Not fire. Burned paper. Records. Confessions. The Harpers were erasing history again. But they were too late. Evelyn pressed the letters to her chest. She was no longer just a secret. She was evidence. And somewhere deep inside the plantation, something old and rotten had begun to collapse. Evelyn didn't sleep. The forest around her whispered with secrets. The same secrets buried beneath the manicured lawns and whitewashed walls of the Harper estate. She clutched the letters tightly, the fragile ink smudging under her trembling fingers, each word a tether to a past she had been kept from, and a future she refused to accept. She thought about the women in those letters, the plantation daughters who vanished or were hidden away like cursed relics. Each story was a thread, woven into a tapestry of deception and cruelty, stretching back generations. But why had Evelyn been spared? Why had she been raised among lies, only to be cast out like a shadow in the night? She knew the answer was tied to the mansion, the house that watched over the land like a cold, unblinking eye. The following day, Evelyn crept back toward the estate, moving silently through the underbrush, the sun casting long fingers of light through the trees. Her heart pounded with a mix of fear and determination. She had to find answers. Near the mansion's back entrance, hidden beneath a crumbling stone arch, Evelyn discovered a cellar door, its iron hinges rusted with age. She forced it open, a waft of damp earth and forgotten time spilling out. Inside was a maze of rooms, each filled with relics, faded portraits, cracked porcelain dolls, and shelves of journals bound in cracked leather. Among the clutter, Evelyn found a diary, its pages yellowed but intact. The handwriting was elegant and precise, penned by a woman named Lillian Harper. Her words spoke of forbidden desires and dark bargains. Lillian wrote of her fear and shame at bearing children that were not welcomed by society, children who carried the blood of slaves. She confessed to hiding them away, locking them in the shadows of the estate to protect the family name. One entry chilled Evelyn to the bone. They are not to be seen. They are to be forgotten. For the family to survive, the truth must die. The mansion was more than a home, it was a prison. Suddenly, footsteps echoed above. Panic surged. Evelyn ducked into the shadows as a figure appeared at the stairwell. Margaret Harper, eyes sharp, lips tight. "You shouldn't be here," Margaret hissed. "I'm looking for the truth," Evelyn said, stepping forward. Margaret's face twisted with pain. "Some truths kill families, but lies destroy towns," Evelyn replied. Margaret's hand tightened on the railing. "You're not like the others," she whispered. "You're the heir, the last chance to save this family." Evelyn's voice hardened. "Save it from what?" Margaret's eyes darted nervously. "From itself." Before Evelyn could respond, the house trembled, a deep, ominous rumble that seemed to rise from the earth itself. A hidden door burst open, revealing a narrow passage descending deep below. Margaret grabbed Evelyn's arm. "There are things down there, things no one was meant to see." Evelyn pulled free. "I'm not afraid." Together they descended into darkness. The underground chamber was vast, walls lined with iron cages and old chains hanging like ghosts. In the center, a crude altar bore symbols that twisted and bled into the stone, a grim testament to the lengths the Harpers would go to protect their secret. Margaret's voice trembled as she confessed. This family made a pact long ago. To preserve their bloodline, to maintain power, they sacrificed everything. Evelyn's stomach churned as shadows flickered across the walls. "These aren't just lies," Margaret said. "They're curses." The earth groaned beneath them. Suddenly, from the darkness, a low whisper rose, an ancient chant that wrapped around their souls like cold chains. Evelyn realized the mansion's horror was not just history. It was alive. The air grew colder as Evelyn and Margaret pressed deeper into the bowels of the mansion, the walls closing in like the grasp of a long-forgotten nightmare. Flickering torchlight barely pierced the suffocating darkness, revealing cryptic symbols carved into the stone, marks that seemed to pulse with a sinister life of their own. Evelyn's breath hitched. Her mind raced, but the truth was closer now, as palpable as the damp earth beneath her feet. "You need to know," Margaret whispered, voice trembling. "Our family's darkness didn't start with the plantation or the slave quarters. It goes deeper, to a secret bloodline bound by dark rituals, twisted love, and unholy bargains." Evelyn swallowed hard. "What kind of rituals?" Margaret hesitated. The pact was made to ensure the Harper bloodline would never die, no matter what. But it came at a terrible price. A sudden noise, a low moan, echoed down the corridor. Both women froze. "That's them," Margaret said, nodding toward a heavy wooden door ahead. "The ones hidden away for generations." Evelyn's heart pounded as she pushed the door open. Inside was a chamber, faintly lit by candlelight. Shadows moved. And then she saw them, figures huddled in iron restraints, gaunt faces etched with pain and madness. Some barely alive, others mere shadows of themselves. "You found them," whispered one voice, cracked and weak. Evelyn stepped closer, horror flooding her senses. These were not just prisoners, they were family. Children born of twisted bloodlines, locked away because their existence was an abomination to society and to their own kin. One man, eyes wild yet lucid, reached out, whispering, "We were meant to die here, but the blood curse binds us." Margaret looked away, tears streaming. "They are the curse, and the legacy." Suddenly, the ground trembled violently. Dust fell from the ceiling. The mansion was awakening, as if furious to have its secrets unearthed. Evelyn grabbed one of the cage's bars. "We have to end this." "But how?" Margaret pleaded. A faint glimmer caught Evelyn's eye. A dusty, ancient book lying forgotten on a pedestal, bound in cracked leather and sealed with a strange symbol. Evelyn reached for it, feeling a cold surge course through her veins. Opening the book, she read words spoken in an old language, chants that promised to break the curse, if spoken with the blood of a true heir. Margaret looked at Evelyn. "That means you." Fear battled with resolve in Evelyn's eyes. "This ends now," she said, voice steady. The walls seemed to close in, the voices of the trapped crying out in anguish and hope. Evelyn raised her voice, chanting the ancient words. The mansion shuddered, the chains rattled, and shadows writhed in agony. Then silence. When Evelyn opened her eyes, the cages were empty. The curse lifted, but the mansion remained, a solemn reminder of the darkness that had almost consumed them all. Evelyn stood amidst the ruins of the once menacing chamber, the echoes of ancient curses fading into the cold stone walls. The air was still, heavy with a silence that felt both victorious and mournful. The blood curse had been broken, the trapped souls freed, yet a new question gnawed at Evelyn's heart. As she closed the ancient book, a hidden compartment in its binding creaked open, revealing a brittle, yellowed letter addressed to her by an unknown hand. With trembling fingers, she unfolded the fragile paper. The letter revealed a truth darker than anything she'd imagined, that the Harper family's torment was not just the result of a pact or twisted rituals. It was a carefully orchestrated legacy of control, greed, and betrayal. The plantation itself was built upon stolen lives, secrets buried with the dead, and a cycle designed to repeat itself, generation after generation. Evelyn's breath caught when she read the final lines. "Beware the blood you carry, for even freed spirits cast long shadows." The true horror is not in the curse itself, but in those who seek to claim it for power. Suddenly, a chill wind swept through the broken windows. Shadows flickered, and distant whispers rose once more. Evelyn realized that while one chapter had closed, the story was far from over. She would have to confront the living horrors, those descendants who would do anything to protect the secret, even at the cost of innocent lives. As she turned to leave the mansion, the floorboards groaned beneath her, and a faint figure appeared in the shadows, a warning or perhaps an omen. Evelyn steeled herself. The past had been unearthed, but the future held its own terrors. Her fight was just beginning. Thank you for joining us on this journey into the darkest corners of forgotten history. The Harper family's tale is a chilling reminder that some secrets refuse to stay buried, and some curses never truly end. If you want to explore more haunted stories and unsettling truths from the past, don't forget to subscribe to Forgotten Remains. Hit the like button if this story sent shivers down your spine, and leave a comment with your thoughts or any mysterious tales you want us to uncover next. Until then, beware what lies beneath the surface, because sometimes the most innocent faces hide the darkest secrets.